What brings me back to Spain is something that I learned through time, that it is very important to be near the source or the reference that you take into account for what you try to develop as projects, as work, as study, as your own development. You always get the chance of seeing new things through new eyes, having new perspectives from people that have a larger experience in a path or in a way, in a study or area of expertise that you could use for your own benefit and evolution and perfection. Okay, and basically being near Shidoshi Jordan helps me in many ways to revisit what I've learned in the past and to rethink in other ways, seeing new ways of studying the same subjects in a way that we can evolve our technique and evolve the way we think about things and the way we do things. So basically being back to Spain is the shot of perfecting what I'm trying to achieve in Bugay and the study of Ubuntu and so on. Well, after 20 years of being studying under the tutelage of Shidoshi Jordan, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, and sometimes in other projects, what I've noticed is that life is too short to be little. And that's a main reason of focus that I think everybody should take into account, especially because there will be no regrets in the end of not having done something, not having tried out something or perfecting something that you found in your path and you thought this is worthwhile. Leaving besides ego and other kinds of smaller preoccupations or reasonings is something very important to take into account so you can evolve and be a better self of yourself. That's basically what I think is more relevant in this sense of trying to be close, trying to be perfecting what you are trying to achieve in a way of being a good professional and even a better person. Well, we face a challenging time with challenging features that try to stress out the best and the worst in us. Shidoshi Jordan says something very important, which is the bigger the radius of a situation, the more drastic are its resolutions. So if we think about it in some ways, we could say that adaptation is something needed in anyone's path. You may try to avoid it, but eventually it will find you. So in dealing with situations in the proper manner, in the right way, in the right intensity, is key to having a successful and a meaningful way of achieving better things for you and not succumbing to the challenges we face, such as pandemics, such as failures in projects, and so on. Okay, so I think that is basically the point of not trying to avoid change, but trying to embrace it in a way that you can be a better self. You can be a better part of yourself in many times and more frequently. Well, when we think about human nature and the human condition, we tend to think about several things, especially evolution and adaptation. It would be quite naive to think about staying in a condition forever, because the context, the environment changes, is dynamic. So anything that is human or is alive, organic, has to adapt, has to evolve, whether the real human being or his or its creation, right? So in a sense, I think our school, our study, our proposal and our projects are evolving according to the places we're going, to the places we have been, to the people we get in touch with. It's very important to say that this adaptation makes a study really relevant to the context of its time. It is said that a student should adapt to a school, especially because he should leave his ego at the door, his arrogance. He should be humble enough to learn what he's trying to achieve in that school, so he can make it something out of his own from the study and from the subjects he gets in touch with. And I think that besides this, a school should adapt, or projects should adapt to its time and society, so it can still continue to be relevant and add up to the human well-being and evolution in general. Okay, so I think when we think of past times, we think of more restrictive ways of thinking instead of beneficial ways of thinking. In the sense that sometimes we saw attitudes being taken in the sense that the means justifies the endings in past times. And you are responsible for what you do in the end, whether the consequences are in the near future or in the far future. You are still responsible for it. They will come to you in due time. So better acting, or acting well in every situation, or at least trying to act the best you can, is always being reliable. And I think the school has, and our studies have gone towards this idea of being something that is mutually beneficial, whether for the individual or for the collective studies that we keep in touch with.